And the reason that you don't have that changeover are all the factors that we talked about here. Number one, in 1975, everybody became equalized valuation by the law. The legislature passed Chapter 212. Everybody went to equalized valuation. And was stuck there till 93. Now we've got three. It's not. Now we've got an infinite number of ways that you can craft your funding formula, but everybody has to agree. All the communities have to agree. That's hard. Unless you have West Windsor and you've got similar demographics, or we talked about Great Meadows when they first were formed, they liked per pupil. Liberty doesn't like that. When Somerset Hills was formed, that's 95 per pupil, 5% equalized valuation. Those communities agreed that that was something they could live with. But you know, everybody else in the regional structure is dealing with equalized valuation because it moved there in 1975, and there's at least either they're happy with it or there's a recognition that it's going to be different when it changes. I think that's why you're very far now. That's like 59 regions. The little fact sheets are flying in my head right now, and I think that's what it is. I know there are 8 consolidating districts. So, folks from the Chester, if you're one of 8. Other questions from you guys?
Mike, is there a Valley around? Are they looking into this?
They're looking. They haven't gone. They haven't asked me to come talk to them.
Okay.
But they are. Know they are looking. A lot of regionals have looked at it. Hunter and Central has looked at it. Hunter and Voorhees has looked at it. They've looked at it. North Hunter and Voorhees is interesting. We've got 13 constituent districts with fractionalized voting and all kinds of neat combinations. So, yeah, I mean, people are looking at ways to do things that they believe would better serve their municipality. I'm hesitant to say it's fair because I have no idea what fair is. Fair is all in wherever you sit. I heard a commercial this morning at CBS News Radio. I live in Woodbridge. CBS News Radio, and it was a commercial sponsored by the AFL-CIO in New York. They were talking about the funding cuts, and particularly in the city. And part of the tagline at the end was that the Wall Street people, the wealthy people, should pay their fair share. Well, if it's like New Jersey, and 20% of the people are paying 80% of the taxes, I guess that's not fair. I mean, I don't know where that goes. So I said, gee, that's interesting. I wonder what the folks think. People think about that. Okay, I don't know. I can't give you fair. I can give you distributed in a way that communities can live with. But even if you do it that way, my daughter used to use that word a lot when she was 16, except the word not was usually not. She still uses it now at 28, but not quite as often. So I have trouble dealing with fair and stuff. Somewhere around.
Repeat, please.
I'm sorry. How long did the West Windsor Plainsboro process take? From when they started to talk about it to the time they got it to the ballot, probably somewhere around 18 months. You know, we would get phone calls. We got phone calls in 2006 from some of their members. We were asked to come out and talk to the board one night. They started to look at different things, and then it took 2008 to get it on some election ballots. So they did a lot of homework and a lot of research, especially having their own in-house demography. So they looked real hard at some of this. But it took a while to build that consensus. Yeah.
How long did it take?
Relatively recently, a few months. The question is, how long has Delaware Valley been looking into this cost apportionment? And I said, a few months. I mean, southern region, just south of Central Regional. Long Beach Island Consolidated, Stafford Township, Waretown, Barnegat, Beach Haven. They've been looking at this in different ways since 2005. They don't really have a good answer because they're faced with the same, looking around, they looked at Central Regional, they're faced with the same situation. They've got a small district on the island, Beach Haven, consolidated district, LBI, Stafford Township on the mainland. They don't have a good number that they can put together and bring to the vote. The interesting piece, when we're down there, Len Connors was the state senator at the time. He's also the mayor of Surf City. And when we sat in that meeting, Debbie Whitcraft, the mayor of Beach Haven, was talking about her conversations with Senator Connors. And John Block, the mayor in Stafford Township, was talking about the conversations with Senator Connors. And they were each essentially saying, they were talking to him and saying, you know, Len, you're state senator, you got to help us here. You know, the person in Beach Haven was saying, we're getting killed. And the Stafford Township guy says, we're not getting killed, but don't we like it, don't change it. And you can see him kind of sitting there saying, 500 votes in Beach Haven, 15,000 votes in Stafford Township, how do I make my decision? And you can just see it, you know. So at the state level, it becomes inherently political. Are there legislators in your communities that would be willing to sponsor something that would be more reasonable for districts? I don't know the answer to that. You guys probably know. All right, why don't we open it up? No other questions from the board? Members of the public? And, yeah, please.
Yeah, hi, Mike. Is there any mechanism in place for communities to get together and talk about this issue? I mean, this issue in the West Morris Regional District has been kicked around for 20 years. But yet I don't think there's ever been a single time when the 5 municipalities, the governing bodies themselves, have actually got together, sat down, and talked about it. It's all been done sort of fractionally. Does the state, does New Jersey school boards, does anyone offer any kind of facilitation so that the groups can get together and have an intelligent conversation about it? Find out what all the relevant facts are so they can make intelligent decisions. Or is it usually just a 2-on-1, a 3-on-1? In this case, I think Washington Township probably feels that it's always been left out of the discussion, and yet they would be the community that would be the loser. So how do these things usually come about? How do these communities talk about it? And how do they develop to the point where a vote actually happens? Or is it just done along the school board level only? I'd be curious to see what you can tell us.
Well, I can speak for what we've done at school board, and I can speak for what we did here in 1999. When there was actually ready grant money available, and you could get up to $100,000 from the state to do your feasibility study. We had a meeting right here, Joanne Morgan and I were here, with President, Vice President, Superintendent, VA, from all the districts involved. They were all here. We met, we talked about the possibility of getting a ready grant, take a look at it, so all of the, if you will, the leadership from those communities, school communities, met, made a determination that they could support seeking the grant, which they did, which they got, that led to the feasibility study. So in that forum, we were able to at least help facilitate that process. I don't know if the League of Municipalities would do something similar on the municipal side. The fact that we're here tonight with members of the board, with members from the community, I mean, at least it's an opportunity to provide that information. I think I know I'm the neutral guy. I don't have a stake in the process, so I can, speak to pros and cons and process and all that. I think the board should be applauded for saying, can you come up and talk to everybody? So everybody hears it from one person, one neutral voice. I think they should be commended for doing that. Not every board would be there. Because I may say stuff they don't like. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do later tonight, other than adopt the budget, hopefully. But at least they've taken the step to bring somebody in to talk about it. Now, what happens after this? Good question.
Would you also just talk about the conclusion of the first stage of the READY grant?
In terms of?
What its result was?
Oh, well, there was a study done by Don Kleiman and Jim Kirkman. I happen to have it here. Was submitted, proposed, and discussed in this room in 2002. And they went through a whole series of scenarios. And at that time, with the data they had and the various district configurations they came up with, the general conclusion was, under the structure at that time, which remains the same structure today, the political likelihood of passing that at that time, any of those changes in structure, was not very good.
Thank you.
Now, there's been a new census. I mean, I've had conversations with people who have called and asked about the new seat apportionment on the board and how that takes place. I haven't seen it, but I understand you received a letter. It indicates that the data will be available sometime in July or somewhere around then, at which point then there'll be a new seat apportionment, there'll be a different configuration. Forget the seat configuration for a minute. The census data says to me there's different populations out there. Does that change the likelihood of some of the results here? Does a change in ratables from 10 years almost make a change in populations, make a change in the results? Maybe. I don't know. Numbers will be what the numbers will be. I know that having been here in that meeting in 2002,